This is lesson 14-4, estimating percent. Our central question, how can you use fractions to estimate percent? And I know this picture is kind of small, but it does show a picture of estimating to find an answer. There's no vocab for this lesson. Okay, example number 1. So we're trying to solve 47% of 77. So let's go ahead and estimate. So I'm going to round to something that is going to be easy for me. So I'm not always going to be rounding. I'm going to round sometimes, or sometimes I might use compatible numbers. So I'm going to change 47% to 50%. So that rounds up to the nearest tens, and it's going to be easier to find. And then I'm going to round 77 up to 80. Now the word of in the middle tells me to multiply. So that's a key word. Try to remember that. Anytime you see the word of, it means multiply. So I'm going to be multiplying 50% times 80. Now, unless you have a special kind of calculator, and we're not going to be using one in class, you can't multiply with a percent. So what you have to do is change that percent to a decimal. And you do that by moving the decimal 2 places to the left. So we're going to be then multiplying 50 hundredths times 80. So I'm going to just put 80 on top. It doesn't really matter which one you do. And then just multiply like normal. So 0 times 0, 0 times 8, 5 times 0, and 5 times 8. Now remember, when you multiply with numbers that have a decimal, you have to have a decimal in your answer. So we look at the two numbers that we multiply together. 80 does not have a decimal, but 50 hundredths does. And we just count over how many places. 1, 2 places over, so that's how many I need to do in my answer. So the answer is 40. 47% of 77 is 40. Example number 2. I'm going to change 18% to 20%. Now when we're estimating, we all don't have to choose the same numbers. That's the good thing about estimating. We just have to be close. And I'm going to change 48 to 50 because it's pretty close. And again, the word of tells me to multiply. I have to change 20% to a decimal, so I move it over 2 places. So I'm multiplying 20 hundredths times 50. Just took these two numbers right here. And I just multiply like normal. 0 times 0, 0 times 2, 5 times 0, and 5 times 2. Now you count how many decimal places. 1, 2, so that's how many you move in your answer. One, 2. So my answer is 10. I could write it the way that it looks, 10 and 0 hundredths, but since they're both zeros, they don't have any value. I can cross them out. That's why I'm just writing 10. Example number 3, I'm going to change 46 to 50 and 28 to 30. The word of tells me to multiply. I have to change my percent to a decimal by moving it over 2 places to the left. So I'm multiplying 50 hundredths times 30. 0 times 0, 0 times 5, 3 times 0, and 3 times 5. See how many places your decimal is? 1, 2 places. So that's how many you do in your answer. 1, 2 places. So my answer is 15. And example number 4, I'm going to change 23 to 20 and 118 to 120. Word of tells me to multiply. Change 20% to a decimal by moving it over 2 places. And multiply. I'm going to put 120 on top because I think it's easier to multiply with the number that has the most digits on top. And it doesn't matter when we multiply which one goes on top and which one goes on bottom. And then we just multiply like normal. And we see how many places we move the decimal, which is 2. So we move it that many places in our answer. So we get 24. Here are 3 practice problems you should estimate and then solve by changing the percent to a decimal and then multiplying. Don't forget a word problem or a question and rate your understanding.